Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. Today, we're going to be discussing Drive Content Faster with Headless CMS. My name is Siobhan Fagan. I'm the managing editor of CMSWire, and I'm happy to be moderating today. So right now, we're just going to do a little bit of housekeeping. We are in the midst of introductions. That takes 5 minutes, give or take. It's usually faster because I speak quickly. Just to leave more time for our main event, our presentation today, you're going to be hearing from two different speakers. And so we want to save a little bit of time at the end for live Q&A for you. So please use the Q&A module at the top right of your browser at any point during the presentation to ask your questions. And those widgets down at the bottom of your screen can help you with any other resources or questions you might have, including technical support. So a little bit about CMSWire. We were founded in 2003, and we publish a wide variety of editorial contributors on 3 primary topic areas. We cover the digital customer experience, the digital workplace, and information management. So today, just as a little extra incentive to stick around, 2 lucky attendees who stay until the end will have a chance to win one of 2 Amazon gift cards. So please do stick around and ask your questions of our 2 presenters. Today's sponsor is Contentstack, and you can find out more at the website there, but you're also going to be hearing a little bit about it in the talk ahead. So there we are, and it's now my privilege to introduce our 2 speakers today. We are going to be hearing from Neha Sampat. She is the CEO and founder of Contentstack, and we'll also be hearing from Gal Oppenheimer, and he is the manager solutions architect at Contentstack. And at this point, I am going to say, take it away, Neha. I think you might be on mute, Neha. Don't worry, it happens all the time.
Sorry, it's the year of being on mute. Hi, everybody.
It's
a pleasure to be here. Thank you for joining and hearing a little bit about our story and our journey. I'm going to start with telling you about my journey. We've essentially been trying to solve problems around digital content experiences for well over a decade now. And we finally have come to a point where we have a solution that we're super excited about. We've poured all of our hearts and souls into over the years. I want to start by talking about the beginning of this journey. I essentially started a consulting practice to help people that were struggling with building digital experiences that they loved. And if you think about 2007 to 2010, there was a lot of changes happening in digital transformation, including, bringing mobile devices to work and the move to cloud. And there's new SaaS technologies. And all of this was new. People were trying to figure out what it meant. Organizations were trying to figure out what it meant for their businesses and their technology stacks. And the consulting practice essentially helped large companies figure out how to adopt their first cloud workloads and how to start building mobile types of applications and experiences. And in doing that, we uncovered that there were several common challenges inside large companies, and we started to build products to address those challenges. And so over the course of the next few years, after having tried to implement Adobe's AEM solution and Drupal and Sitecore and Tridian, and WordPress, what we found is those solutions were built for the web, and they were built a couple decades ago. And we wanted to build things that would take advantage of API-based solutions and SaaS in the cloud. And so there was 2 products that we built out of our engineering. One was called Built.io, which was an integration platform, and another was called Contentstack, which is what we're going to talk about today. We spun both of those companies out of our engineering, and I went down the Contentstack journey. That's where my passion really is. And since then, we've raised funds for Contentstack with our investment partners, and we've started to go down this path of showing the world that there is a better way to manage content and deliver the digital experiences that you envision, that you care about. And essentially, the thing that sets us apart from other solutions in our space is that we have an enterprise focus. We have a lot of focus on experience and understanding that business practitioners, business users are as important as developers. You want to bring the innovation to life, and you want to make it easy to use. And we care about both, and we care about the quality of those 2 users in our experience. And from an execution standpoint, if you talk to any of our customers, you'll learn that our consultative approach that comes from our services background, it carries over into how we deliver the product and how we think about the interaction between the product and your organization. And that's a little bit of our journey and why we exist. If you think about the world 25 years ago, there was content management systems or CMS systems. If you think about where the world has gone, there's digital experience platforms. It's our belief that these two will come together and merge, and we sit at the center of what those two areas are. The reason that we exist is if you think about an organization today, there's a lot of different systems and data and content that's all disconnected. And if you think about monolith applications that most organizations and large enterprises are using, they're too complex and they lack the flexibility that you need to do today's work. You've got business users and technology users that have conflicting points of view on how to carry out a solution. With an agile solution like Contentstack, you've got the opportunity to make both sides feel really innovative and empowered. From the perspective of how people are consuming content, things have changed so much. We now look at content on all of our different devices. When we're walking around on different types of screens, we're consuming content in different ways, small snippets, large form, short form. And the suite vendors really can't keep up with that type of personalization and that type of omni-channel experience. And that's been one of
It looks like Neha is possibly having some internet connections, so just stand by for a moment and we're going to see if we can get this fixed. But in the meantime, I think, Gal, are you there?
Neha, for the beginning, let's give her one moment to try and come back, and if not, we'll kick off the demo without her.
Absolutely.
I think she's probably in the process of restarting on 24.
Yeah, this happens all the time. So be patient, audience. This takes up a lot of bandwidth, and I'm sure you've all experienced this over the last year of video calls, etc., where people are frozen. So hopefully we can get Neha back in. Otherwise, we will be having a demo soon.
Hi there. Can you hear me now?
Great. Welcome back, Neha.
Awesome.
Yep.
I apologize for that interruption. Here we go. So where I left off, I believe, was talking about how we think about an organization. And the last piece of this is essentially whatever digital initiative you're dealing with in your organization, whether it's related to AI and ML and incorporating that, or thinking about analytics, or thinking about personalization, all of these things need to come together. And this is where Contentstack plays an important role in sort of being the glue or the hub for all of your content initiatives inside a company. And with that, I'm going to actually have Gal walk us through a really cool demo. And I'll just tell you one more thing about Contentstack and the culture at the company. We've got a couple certified sommeliers on the leadership team, myself included, and so wine has been a big part of our culture. And over the years in working with Gal, I've always thought about how cool would it be if you can pick a bottle of wine and then figure out what's the food that we should pair with this wine instead of the other way. And so we started to build something cool around that. Over to you, Gal.
Awesome, awesome. And I think the screen share is just starting up. Are you able to see it? Yep. Looks like it can. Awesome. So what we have here is, as Neha said, a wine and recipes website. On the right side here, you're actually seeing my phone live. So you can see me holding it up. It's not a recording. It's just QuickTime likes to drop this little icon just to make everyone miserable. And like Neha said, we're going to start with a bottle of wine. So we picked up one of my favorite bottles of white. We're going to click right here at the top on the barcode scanner and approve the camera. And let's scan the bottle. Oh, it's upside down. Let's flip it the other way. See here, it scanned in the bottle of wine right down here and gave me some recommended recipes. To make it easier to show it together, I'm just going to jump over to the web view right here. And so you can see it's a responsive website, and we'll bring it out to make it a little better for the computer. And so this is basically the home of the application. All of the content in here is coming from Contentstack, and we're going to show you that in just a moment. I wanted to start here to really show how you can build an amazing experience for your customers on top of your data. So you can see here how it's bringing the different food that I'm looking at, and I have all these advanced filters here. So I can look, let's say I want easy recipes because I'm new to cooking, or I want things that take 30 to 60 minutes or under 30 minutes. It allows me to filter down, and I can even filter down, let's say I have allergies. Let's say I can't use anything with milk. I can filter down to only recipes that have no milk. And this is a great way to bring it together, this experience for customers. And we also have actual full personalization built into this. So if I had been using this site for a lot of time in the background, we're using a tool called Dynamic Yield to actually progressively profile customer. To make it easier for me to demo live on a call, I have a quick switcher right here. So let's say it thought I was sort of a traditional cook. It's going to filter down and give me recipes of really any complexity, but things that take more than 60 minutes because I want those sort of longer recipes that need time to stew and build flavor. Or let's say I'm a working mom, which even though I'm not a working mom, I do love quick recipes. So finding recipes that are easy, presuming like you have someone pulling your hair or screaming in the background, throwing a tantrum, and they take under 30 minutes. So really easy to find those great recipes. So what we're going to jump over the homepage, and we're going to add a new item to the homepage. So you can see here, it's actually a really rich, flexible page coming in here. So you can have the banner up here, this 4-column view, which we're going to do a little bit more with later today. You can see some recipes, wine, as well as a video talking about wine. Here to jump straight into the Contentstack. And so that makes it really easy for content creators, regardless to where they are on the site. If they want to make changes to the site, they can go in here and make whatever changes they want. And so in the view, you can see how all of it is coming in from the different flexible pieces. So the most important piece in Contentstack, in my opinion, for content creators is this feature here called modular blocks. And what it does is it allows content creators to basically break down a page into different building blocks and put them in wherever I want. So let's say I want to add some new content in here. I can click on this building block. I can say drag this in to appear right above my video, and I'll go in and start putting in some content. Thankfully, Google Chrome is making it super easy for me because it can remember what I tested out when I tried this out a little bit earlier. And I'll drop in these description items. And so now I've put this piece in here. Let's pick an image. So I can upload a new image or pick an image from the built-in digital asset manager. So I'll pick this cookie recipe and we'll click save. And you can see behind the scenes, the page is actually automatically refreshing itself. So you can see right over here. I can now see this cookie recipe that I dropped in right above the video.
That's awesome. And it's so fast, and literally anybody can do what you just walked through. But Gal, can you show us how difficult or easy it would be if you wanted to kind of change the layout? Because this looks really stacked, and maybe there's a different way to present it.
Yeah, that's a great point. So in Contentstack, you can actually do more than just manage the content. So we saw me put in this information, but I can actually manage the experience as well. So first of all, what I can do, you can see how over here, these sort of two beige backgrounds don't really look good together with each other. So I can drag the video up above the cookie I just dropped in. And then you can see how both of these are aligned to the right. So I can go in and maybe switch this over to the left. And I can add even an animation. So let's say I want to have it fade from the right side. Let me quickly scroll up so we'll get the full effect. I'll click Save over here. So now, again, it's automatically publishing out this change to my preview environment. And so if I scroll down, you can now see that the video comes in first, and the cookie recipe slid into the right side and is flipped over. So it just looks much better for the content creations, or things that when you set up your application, you decide how flexible you want to make the pages, and you can do it live from the system.
It's awesome. And it's so fast and easy. And the fact that you can preview it before pushing it live also makes it something that a lot of marketers look for.
Yep, so let's take a look at that wine page. We'll see if there's anything we want to change and improve on the page we were looking at. So you can see here, there is a picture of the bottle of wine. There's another image of some pizza and wine. What do you think, Neha? Do we need more content in here, or should we switch something out?
Yeah, well, let's see. It feels like we could add maybe one more image and just see if that
sure. Yeah,
brings people excited about trying the wine.
Yeah, let's take a look. So you can see here, this is the page template for the wine. Right here, this is actually an integration between Contentstack and the Commerce Engine. So actually, I can go in here, and if I wanted to, I could add items to the cart. All of this is built straight into the system. And down here is where the banners are from. We're really lucky because we added a bunch of new assets to our digital asset manager. So this is connected with a company called Binder. A lot of images already added in here that I can pick from. So let's find one that we like. We already have pizza and wine. Maybe we can do this pretty gourmet one over here. Let's add this in. Perfect. And let's just drop this one. We'll try out this other image instead. We'll save this down. And then behind the scenes, we can see it's coming in here. And so now I can see the new item coming in here. And we actually have an A/B test that's running here. And we'll talk more about A/B tests in a bit. But so if I switch off periodically between the different items, and of course, it's decided to only show me one item today. If I bring this into like a new window, it'll show me the different items, and it's actually going to run an A/B test on which one causes you to click on add to cart more often, and then use that to actually give you feedback on the best content to use for your website. Cool. And so I think we like this change. So let's go over here. I want to add some feedback. And so I know we've made some changes, but neither you or I are really authorized to publish this content live because we're not the marketing managers. So let me add a comment here. I'll tag one of our marketing guys, Ben. Hey, the new image, can we publish it out? So this is really cool. There's comments built in the system. I can tag individual users or tag roles and add them in here. And then they'll get an automatic email when I'll see it, as well as see an alert right up here in the system. And in the discussion side, we can actually see, so I have one active discussion. If I want to look at like resolved items I'm here before, as well as a full timeline of conversation. Cool to be able to see all of this in the system.
What I really love about this feature is it's kind of like if you're used to working in something like Google Docs, it brings it right into the user interface of Contentstack. So you don't have to maintain multiple places where you're doing all this. You can just look at where you're tagged and take some action. It's super fast and super easy. So hey, Gal, I think we are launching the French site. Do you think you can move this to translation and just walk us through how that would work?
Yeah, that's a great idea. So Contentstack has probably one of the most powerful workflow engines built into the platform across any headless CMS. And so the step before this, which we already have, is we have a bunch of workflow stages set up. I'm logged in as an admin, so I can jump around. But you can add permissions on this for which users can move things through different stages, what stages they can move through, as well as build automations on top of it. So what I'll do now is I'll drop this into send to translation, and I'll update the stage. Behind the scene, Contentstack actually takes all the content on this page and sends it out to a translation engine. We have dozens of partners in that space. And in this case, I've built it so it automatically pulls the content back in a couple seconds later. So if I go look at the French translation over here, I can see this just came in a few seconds ago. And if I scroll down, we can see the French over here. I don't speak French, so I can't tell you how good the translation is, but maybe someone who does can give feedback on how it looks. So I think we're ready to go over here. So what I can do is I can publish this out for approval from our team. So we have in Contentstack, there's a couple different things around publishing. So first of all, when publishing content, in addition to the instant previewing we've been seeing throughout this demo, I can actually choose specifically where I want to push my content to, and I can push it to multiple places at once. So for example, I can have multiple preview environments to allow different teams to work simultaneously. I could also, if it had the right approvals, push it to production, and the system will automatically catch those approvals for you. So for example, let's say I try to push into print. You see that I'm not to print. It needs to be approved. So it's really nice that the system just brings all these things together for users are. And additionally, if I wanted to, I could actually schedule this to go live in the future. So I could schedule it for, say, like Friday a.m. if I wanted to in the system, and will automatically take care of time zones, time change, all those things that no one likes to think about, we take care of automatically in the system.
Awesome. Is there an opportunity to do A/B testing here as well?
Yes, definitely there is. One thing I also want to show you, I just remembered, is I wanted to show you how you can also add this to what's called a release. So let's say this change is something I wanted to group up with the change we made on the home page and other items. I could actually create a release and publish a bunch of items in at the same time. So like, let's say I want to look at my cookie release, I can add this to that change. And Contentstack will also look for any linked items and let you add them all in at once. And so this will let me actually take, say, 200 changes at once or even more in the system. I can group all of those things together and schedule this out. Now go back to our homepage and set up an A/B test. So if I come look at the homepage, you'll see, let me quickly just reset this from the other part of our demo. Give me 1 second. So if I come look at the homepage over here, you can see that there's 2 of these sections together. They look very similar. I probably don't want to have them both on the page, but maybe we have a disagreement in our marketing team right now. Do people content or people looking for more sort of winter food, because that sort of cold? So we have an integration with Optimizely to allow A/B testing. And it's set up so the content editors can very easily turn on experiments without ever going to a developer and also see the reporting from it. So I can go right over here. I can select which experiment I want to turn on. In this case, I'm going to turn on my homepage comments, and I can save this change in the system. So behind the scenes, it previewed it out. And so now it's basically running an A/B test and tracking which of these different items I click. So if I refresh this page a couple times, you can see different items coming in. So in this case, it's less prep, more tests. Let's just open this in an incognito window. So there's no historical tracking. Refresh this one more time. After a few of these, now you can see warm up the winter. So all this is happening in the background, and it's basically reviewing my analytics and what's going in. Then the great part is in Contentstack, I can actually see the analytics coming in live. So I can see my goal conversion or my different data coming in from other systems. This is actually pulling data combined from Google Analytics as well as Optimizely to bring the information back into the system. So I, as a user, where I created my experiment, can also look at the results of my experiment and learn from there.
That's awesome. And it helps business users make better decisions about how to present content and where it should go and all that good stuff, which is really cool.
Yep. So let's take a look at some cool stuff. My favorite recipe. So it's been a lot of fun building the site because I actually get a lot of new recipes to try. And my favorite one here is Sonia on our marketing team shared a really good salmon recipe she's created. So you can see this beautiful view right over here. And we wanted to sort of spice things up because when you're in the kitchen cooking, bringing in your laptop or bringing in your phone is hard because your hands are dirty and a lot of things are going on. So in Contentstack, in addition to actually setting up the recipe, we've actually connected it in with an Alexa integration. So you can actually ask Alexa for the recipe. Let's quickly through this recipe in Contentstack. So you can see all the information here, the image, sort of some overview data about the recipe. You can see all the ingredients here and allergens and how you can filter through things to hide away. When you think about it, there's thousands of ingredients in the world, and they all pare down to different allergens. Some of them are really obvious. Like if you put milk in your recipe, you know that someone with a milk allergy or cheese will be allergic to it. But some of them are things you may not think about. Or for example, like peanuts aren't actually a nut and all these other things that surprise us. So it was important for us to make this very easy for content creators. And if we gave them like a PDF with 5,000 ingredients and like 50 allergies to map against, they had to do it manually, that would be really bad for our content database. So what we built is a built-in integration called a custom field that will automate this for them. So let's say I go in here and I add, say, like lemon juice as an item. The system will automatically use the citrus as an allergen. Or like, let's say I remove Parmesan cheese from the list, it automatically removes milk as an allergen. So all of this is fully automated. So for me as a content creator, my recipe information, thinking of the recipe itself, focusing on the information I'm an expert in, and allowing the system to basically fill the gaps and build an expertise in other areas. Really cool from that perspective. So let's jump over. I know I hinted at the Alexa integration. We'll jump over here and show you guys that. Unfortunately, on 24, the platform we're on is a little bit difficult from a screen sharing perspective, so I can't actually share the audio coming from this, but I will be able to hear Alexa actually talking to me. You'll be able to see what she's saying visually. And we'll follow up after today's presentation with a short recording so you can actually see it fully live in action. But it's hopefully still really cool. And so Alexa's asked me what I want to cook tonight. Let's ask her. Salmon. Oh, and of course it misheard me. This is the fun part. We've all experienced this with Alexa and other items. Salmon. And so what you can see here happening on the left side, I think it's actually really cool, is you can actually see the full set of integrations we've built and how the Alexa application, like the neural engine really behind this application, is translating my commands into different commands and automations in the system. When you're talking to a bot, you don't really think about all these things. That this recipe that you saw on a website or on a mobile app is really building in for this sort of voice experience. And so we'll ask for the first step.
Nicole's hearing all of this in his ear right now, which is why there's a nice long pause.
Yep, sorry about that. Awesome. So I think we're good with the demo. Neha, I'll hand it back to you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. That was great, Gal. And what I love about that demo, and the first time I saw it, really blew my mind, because if you think about what Gal just showed you, it was a combination of commerce, the digital asset management integration, personalization, voice integration, localization integration, A/B testing integration, and those are all systems and tools that are best of breed in the industry that we thread together using your Content Hub, which is Contentstack, and you don't actually have to leave the user interface of Contentstack to be powered to use all of those different services and tools that you use in your job. And so that's where the first time I saw that, it was literally 8 integrations, and it was all built within a few weeks, the whole demo end to end. So imagine trying to integrate your current content management system with a digital asset manager and a commerce engine and voice and all these other pieces. It usually could not happen that fast. And that's the power of microservices and really the power of this new approach to to content and digital experiences. We like to call it MOC, which is now an industry term and an alliance. MOC stands for microservices, API first, cloud native, and headless. And that's really where Contentstack falls into play and really essentially ends up being super powerful. So let's go back to the presentation here. Okay. So just to kind of wrap up, this is a snapshot of some of our current customers that essentially have been using Contentstack to do really cool, new, innovative digital experiences inside their organizations. It's typically large enterprises that we work with, or organizations that are really forward-thinking and thinking about doing things that they wouldn't be able to do with traditional platforms. Just to talk about a few of these, I think it's really powerful when you can realize the power of your platform when you tie that back to wanting to do something that you couldn't do before because the only thing that was in your way was not your ability to think about it and dream about it, but the actual technology was stopping you. And that's when you really see Contentstack coming to fruition. Is this example, for example, with Freeletics, they weren't able to do something in a competing platform, but they were able to move to Contentstack and do it really quickly and very globally and really fast. And it's super powerful to hear their story directly. You might see some of that in our follow-up as well. Last year, 2020, was really challenging for a lot of organizations. Ellie Mae went through a lot of transformation. They actually were purchased by a larger organization. They had a huge digital event planned at the beginning of the year. And with COVID and the lockdown, they had to move that to virtual. We never thought of Contentstack as a platform to power a virtual experience like that, but they did. And this goes back to kind of breaking the boundaries of your thinking and having a technology platform that enables you to do new things and do them fast and do them really efficiently and save you money. And this is something they were able to do with a quick pivot from idea to going live with this event in 6 weeks, which actually doubled their attendance. And it's been really good for their brand and their image as they went through their major transformation last year. And then one more example, Express is actually an organization that uses Contentstack in some really creative ways. And what they found when they were using Contentstack on their mobile application is that they had these new opportunities to kind of bridge what was happening in physical experiences in stores and what happens digitally. And bringing those together to some in-store experiences was another sort of creative way to use this new digital experience opportunity. So those are a few examples of customers that have used Contentstack in innovative ways. And essentially why we exist is that the world has changed. You can't just do web anymore. The world has moved to omni-channel, and that's something that most brands have accepted and have started to build a plan for. Where content could be generic before, we now understand the importance of everything being individualized and personalized. And that doesn't mean, I'm a 30-year-old female. It means I'm Neha, and I want people to know who I am, and I want them to deliver things that are useful to me and earn my opt-in. And being able to do that with new technologies is super important. And then moving from static content to more dynamic experiences where you're actually interacting and feeling like you're a part of something more engaging. And then finally being able to make changes really quick. And you saw from the demo the power of being able to do things really fast and react to what you're learning about your users, and being able to do it in the way that you want with a lot of flexibility. And with that, I think we're ready to move to questions.
Yes, we are. Thank you so much, Neha. So for our audience, now's the time. Get your questions in about all things Headless CMS. You can use that Q&A module at the top right of your browser to submit your questions, and also let us know what you're up to, what kind of content experiences you're building for your audience. You can tweet us at CMSWire and at Contentstack. So I am just going to dive in here, and Neha, the first question is going to you. And the question is, why do you think headless CMSs have experienced such a surge in adoption in the last 18 months? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, for sure. So it kind of goes back to the slide where I froze on when I was talking about all the changes that are happening inside an organization. And even in the last 12 months, given what we've gone through with the lockdown and COVID, virtual and digital has become even more essential and core to the way businesses think about connecting with their audiences. And so it's a combination of the speed that the market is trying to move at delivering technology and delivering experiences, but also that there's a digital transformation that's happened. And for some companies, it's been gradual. For others, it's been accelerated. And Contentstack sits at the center of that. And so does sort of headless in general, or API first in general, allowing you to do what you need to do quickly with the best tools in the industry and in a modern way. And essentially all of that coming together has been this convergence of this really huge demand for this headless type of experience.
Excellent. So I'm going to keep you here for a moment. And if an organization has a more traditional coupled CMS, what would be the key indicators that they're ready to go headless?
So when you start to feel like you're limited and you can't do the things you want to do in the timely fashion, and you start to see that you're being outcompeted by the rest of the market, that tends to be a big indicator. What we see a lot is when there's a speed at which the business team wants to move and the tech team can't necessarily support them or keep up, that also becomes a big indicator, because you're seeing that business is trying to remain relevant and competitive in a market that's moving really fast. And digital experiences are becoming more modernized, and your users are expecting more from you. So when all of those things come together, you see that there's a lot of friction inside the organization between technologists and business users. And there's also all these things that you want to do quickly, but you're feeling like your monolith or your suite system doesn't allow you to do it. And so those are typically some of the big indicators that we see. A lot of companies will start with something that they're not already doing. If they've got tech debt, for example, they don't have a huge mobile experience or mobile presence, they may start with mobile and then quickly realize the benefits of using a headless architecture and then start to move more of their content. So it's not always a rip and replace scenario for organizations. Sometimes you start with something that you haven't done before because these systems and tools were built for that.
Excellent. So Gal, can I bring you in here? Somebody wants to know
definitely.
How fast it takes for content to publish worldwide. Any estimates on that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think for a lot of marketers that have been working in the space for years, decades, like we're used to that sort of caching world where you publish content and it takes anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour to go live. I remember back sort of in my conference days and earlier in my career, we'd publish and at some point 30 minutes later to an hour later it would go live. So you had to make sure to get it out early enough that it would hit everyone within that hour, but late enough that you wouldn't have like the feed, for example, for a live event up before anyone's actually on stage ready to talk or hang out. Contentstack's completely different. Our architecture works in less than seconds. So remember when I click that publish button in the platform, in our CMS, it takes about 0.8 seconds. That's less than 1 second for that content to reach every continent except for Antarctica. We don't have any customers at Antarctica yet, but hopefully one day we'll get some there to push the content out. And so what's great about that is you don't need to have that planning. Like if you see a typo on your homepage, it can 2 minutes later, it'll probably take longer for you to actually correct the typo than it will for the content to actually get all across the world, which I think is just really awesome in how the world works today.
That's excellent. Yeah, everything definitely is speeding up. So I'm going to keep you here for a little bit longer. And the question is, how do you start to build the data to track audiences all the way through their journey so that you can give them different goals throughout their journey, customer journey?
That's a really good question. So I think to touch on this, I want a little more color to something Neha covered in the beginning of her presentation. She talked about an organization called MACH, the MACH Alliance. So MACH stands for Microservice, Cloud, and Headless. And that's a lot of industry terminology that probably means nothing to most people. but actually each of them really are tent poles of a technology approach around how you want to build things. So in the old world of development, you'd come and you'd pick one vendor and you'd give them usually an RFP with 400 items you expect them to come back with, and you'd pick whoever had the most check marks next to them. And that seemed like a great approach. And part of why you did that was connecting different platforms and different services was very difficult and very painful to do. Like you'd be looking at 3 to 9 months per integration. And the problem with that is every company out there, there's 10 things they do amazing. There's probably 40 or 50 things that they do pretty well. And then there's other stuff that they do a terrible job of. And you're basically subject to their success or failures in that space. From our perspective and the way the world has moved to, and that's sort of what Mock entails, is how to build things properly, where instead of picking one vendor for everything, you pick a specific vendor for different pieces, and you connect them in through that microservices API first approach. So for example, we talked about dynamic yield as part of our demo, which they do that progressive profiling and data gathering of customers. So their integration tracks every single activity a customer does in the same way that something like Google Analytics does. But Google Analytics targeted towards analytics of what your users are doing, and dynamic yield is targeted towards building a profile per customer. So identifying what Neha does on the website and how what she does on the website is different from what I do, and not grouping us into male and female, but grouping Neha into sort of an avid cook who likes, let's say, Mexican flavors, but doesn't cook any meat because Neha's vegetarian. While on the flip side, like I also love Mexican flavors, but I cook a ton of steak because I'm obsessed with steak, and it'll actually build different profiles for those. And so what you do is you bring in these different tools targeted at specific parts of the puzzles you're trying to work, and allow them to connect the data in the system and help you actually build that profile to customers. And what's great is that profile will continue growing over time and allow you to then use, for example, dynamic yield, the next best piece of content for a user.
Awesome. So we've got a question, Neha, about the Contentstack pricing model. Can you discuss that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. And from a pricing perspective, this is actually one of the areas where, compared to other headless offerings, we try to make it as simple as possible to understand and predict where you're going. We see that a lot of our customers will start smaller and then grow as they learn to use the technology and platform and uncover new ways of using it. So typically it's tied to the number of users and then the number of properties, and properties could be a website or a mobile app or some other digital property. And then on top of that, we have special additional add-on features and things like that that turn on additional pricing. So we try to keep it really simple and straightforward and predictable so that organizations pick what works best for them.
Excellent. So Gal, bringing you back in here, we have a question. Can this be used as a service API?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, we didn't show any of this because sort of we geared our demo today to be more on sort of the marketing and experience side for content creators. But the only way to actually integrate Contentstack with a page is through a services layer. And so you're building in the API and integrating it into your front end. And from there, that's sort of how you build your experience. And whoever asked that question, I'd love to connect with you and actually show you a little bit of what happens under the hood and how it works in the future.
All right. So Philippe, expect to hear from Gal. So this next question, I'm going to start with you, Neha, and then Gal, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. How is Mock viewed in the world of financial services? Is there more inertia in this sector? Neha? Yeah,
sure. I mean, it's a great question. So I would say, think about cloud adoption a few years ago and where financial services was with that. I think it's kind of following a similar trend to where we started with, what is cloud? What does it mean for me? I'm staying away from cloud in financial services to now everything is kind of moving to cloud, and there's a cloud strategy inside every financial services organization. Similarly, the API-based approach or Mock approach that we talk about is really the move from monolith from suites to moving to stacks. And we're finding that a lot of financial services companies are starting to move in that direction because it gives them the agility and flexibility to do what they want. And the security measures that might have hindered them in the past have been addressed in most of the cloud providers and technologies that exist. So SaaS has been adopted inside financial services organizations, so has the mock approach.
Gal, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, definitely. And I think just as Neha said, the growth of cloud is a perfect example. Where we saw sort of the first companies to move into Contentstack and into the headless space in the financial space is around sort of financial research. So when you're thinking more of content rather than like a traditional bank, it then shifted in insurance. Like insurance grew like crazy about a year and a half, 2 years ago. We have, I think, on 3 or 4 different continents already now, insurance companies powering their content with Contentstack. And then we've actually now finally seen in 2020, the actual sort of more traditional banks being ready to move into Contentstack. It's definitely a step, just like Neha was saying with cloud, where people sometimes feel sort of it's different to control your own data. But in fact, from a security perspective, it's actually more secure to integrate your data APIs. And so those banks, they have very, very detailed security reviews. I think I had one that was 400 questions long to get through before we were approved, but they've really have never looked back since. And so it's definitely growing in that space as well.
That's really interesting. This is my own curiosity. Have the two of you seen similar motions in this direction from other heavily regulated industries?
Yeah, for sure. And
I think go ahead.
Sorry, Gal, I didn't mean to, I think there's a delay, so we're talking over each other. But what we saw, especially in the last year and a half or so, is with the growth that happened in healthcare and then surprisingly and interestingly, energy, those are 2 areas that we've seen a lot of movement towards these types of technologies and these approaches to building solutions. And some of it came as a surprise, and some of it, I think, is just a natural evolution of adopting newer and modern technology trends.
Awesome. Thank you.
I think the end of your audio, but yeah, you covered what I was going to say perfectly.
Okay.
So we're good.
So I'm going to, Gal, this next one's actually for you. And the question is from Philippe again. And he wants to know, can we use other PIMs instead of commerce tools with Contentstack?
Yeah, the answer is yes. So the integration there was powered through a feature called custom fields. We have about 50 custom fields that are created by Contentstack and our partners, and we're constantly adding to that list with new ones every month, as well as the same what's called an SDK. The same SDK that we use to develop those integrations is also available to our customers. So we have different PIMs that are pre-integrated, and you have your own integration sort of as you need. Today on the demo, we're built in, I think, as well.
Excellent. So we've got another integration question, so I'm going to keep you here. And the question is, can they connect this with their WordPress site?
Yeah. So architecturally, the way Contentstack works is you basically are sitting in our system as a content creator, creating content, editing it through the interface. When you click publish, whatever the CDN, that sort of less than 1 second publishing I talked about, is we're taking the information, actually delivering it in what's called a JSON object. So it's a very, very formatted, nerdy looking technical document that developers and other software programs know how to read. And that can be integrated into virtually anything you want in the world. We have customers that have done it for websites, mobile apps, I'm blinking, probably billboards. We even, I think someone did like a washing machine or a temperature sensor, so something sort of on the physical hardware side as well. It's really anywhere you want to. And so WordPress can be one of those destinations that you are integrating to. And for some of those, we have pre-built integrations that you can spin up an integration just a couple of hours. Some of them, there's a little bit more heavy lifting to connect. But really anything with a digital heartbeat can be connected with Contentstack.
Okay, so Gal, I think Philippe's just wants to pick your brain. We've got another question for you here from him. And the
Awesome.
question is, how do you compare Contentstack with Contentful?
Cool. Yeah, great. And Philippe, I think I would love to connect with you afterwards to go into more detail on all of these. But at a high level, I think Contentstack and Contentful, oftentimes we get grouped together because we are sort of the two premier headless CMS in the space. We both have been around for a while and have great customers and great platform. I think, and obviously I can't speak for it and don't know their details, but the way I look at it sort of from our perspective is our customer different, and all of the features we build and the way we think about building things come from that space. We come from a leadership team, our engineering team. We've been in enterprise. We understand that space very well. And our goal was from day one to build an amazing experience for both content editors and developers. Because if you look at where the CMS world was 10 years ago, tools were either amazing for developers and a complete living hell for content editors to work from, or they were amazing for content editors and a total nightmare for developers to build with. And we didn't see that as the right way to go and the right solution for anyone out there. And so we built our platform for enterprise with the focus on equality between content editors and developers. From what I've seen in Contentful, their goal was to build an API-first CMS and basically put an API on top of developers and simplify, or put an API on top of a database and simplify the process for developers. Because before both their and our platforms existed, if you wanted anything other than a traditional CMS, you'd go to Amazon and you'd buy some servers and you'd install MongoDB on top of it, and then you'd install an API on top of it, and then you'd also go and code an entire edit. And that whole process I just described is 2 years. And so what Contentful did was they made it for developers. If they needed an admin panel somewhere or they needed to add something for their site, they could take that 2-year process and shave it down to a few weeks or around that time frame. And so very, very good use case, very different purpose. And all of the features we've built out over the years come from, I think, sort of those 2 different origin stories and the 2 different solutions we're trying to solve. So although our APIs actually look very similar for developers, I think the goals behind how both of our platforms work are very different.
Excellent. That was a really thorough response. So Neha, I am going to bring you in for what looks like might be the final question. We still have a minute for another few. So if anybody has any other questions, get them in now. So Neha, you talked about having content experiences at different parts of the customer journey. How do businesses determine what goes where?
Great question. And this is actually the magic around this, is that you're no longer bound by the technology. You're really just bound by your ability to think about what you want to do. And so I would put some of that back on the organization. Dream big, figure out what digital experiences you want to bring to life for which of your users and audiences, and then don't let technology get in your way. Embrace the new way of doing things, because there is a better way than what most organizations are using today. And then to add on to that, we showed some of this, but personalization gives you the opportunity to really get to know your users and start to build experiences that engage them in a more effective way, and then using analytics to look at what's happening, and then being able to quickly shift what you're showing, what you're doing, and what part of the journey you want to enable happens, because you now have more insights into what your users are doing as a result of all of this. And then finally, with A/B testing, you can also see what's working and what's not, and tie that back into the decision-making process. So it's really about, what's your roadmap? What do you want to accomplish? What's gotten in your way before that you wish you could bring to life? And then how quickly do you want to bring it to market? And those are really the ways that you kind of start to design the customer journey in a modern digital experience format.
Awesome. Well, that is it on our questions. Thank you to everybody in the audience who sent in all those great questions. If you stuck around, you should keep an eye on your inbox just to see if potentially you won one of those 2 gift cards. And we have recorded this webinar, so you will be getting a link to the on-demand video in the next few business days. Thank you so much, Neha. Thank you so much, Gal, for this great presentation. And thank you to Contentstack for sponsoring today's event. I want to wish everybody a great rest of your day.
Thank you.